All right, here we are, guys, back to a couple more problems from page 1. All right, so we're on G, and luckily, even though I crossed it out, we have the equation asked about in G right here. So if I rewrite that, this is a little bit different now because now we don't have x plus or minus something. We have cosine of 2x, right? So this is going to change the period of the graph, so you'd think it might give us more answers. More or less, just depends. And that's going to equal, in this case, minus 3 divided by 3, which is negative 1. Okay, so that means that 2x is equal to pi plus or minus 2 pi k. All right, so one thing nice about this is there's only one place where cosine can be negative 1, right? It's straight to the left. So that's at angle pi plus or minus 2 pi k. All right, so now when we divide this, right, if we divide, you have to divide both terms by that 2. If you had 2x plus a number and you were subtracting to get rid of that number, you only have to subtract one thing, okay, or one term. You got to be careful with multiplication division. So this means that x is equal to pi over 2 plus or minus pi k. All right, and so you see what happened? So our period went from 2 pi to pi, and so now we're going to get more solutions because we have, more times that we can add this. 0 to 3 pi is our set of x values that they want, so we've got pi over 2. I can't subtract pi from that without going negative. I've got 3 pi over 2, and we've got 5 pi over 2. Okay, so yeah, we've got 3 answers there. And what you guys can do, let me underline this first. Let's go green just to make it something different. In theory, any of these you should be able to put back in the original equation and have it work. So let's just check the 5 pi over 2. Well, if we put that in there, 2 times 5 pi over 2 is 5 pi. The cosine of 5 pi is on the left side, so that's going to be negative 1. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3, plus 3 is 0. So yeah, it works. I guess, yeah, I'll go back up and check G. H, we have not here. Okay, so that one, let's look. This is going to be cosine 3x equals negative a half, right? Subtract 2, divide by 4. Okay, so cosine 3x is negative a half. I guess, yeah, we'll try and fit that here. H, cosine 3x equals negative a half. I just want to double check that that's right because I don't want to keep going and then have a mistake made. Yeah, and between negative pi and pi. Okay. So this means that 3x is equal to negative a half, so that could be 2 pi over 3 plus or minus 2 pi k, or 4 pi over 3 plus or minus 2 pi k. Okay, same thing here. So I've got a 3x, that means I need to divide both this term and this term by 3. So x is going to be 2 pi over 9 plus or minus 2 pi over 3k, or 4 pi over 9 plus or minus 2 pi k over 2 pi over 3k. And really I could say 2 pi over 3 just to make it a little bit easier is the same as 4 pi over 9. Just lied. Sorry. Wow. Oh, what's going on with my arithmetic? It's 6 pi over 9. All right. So that makes it a little bit easier to see our limits for me. We're going from, negative pi to pi. Okay, so I'll write it over here on the left now. So for this, x can be, 2 pi over 9, that works. If I add 6 pi over 9, that still works, that's 8. And then I can also subtract, that's negative 4. If I subtract again, it's too much. So this will be negative 4 pi over 9, 2 pi over 9, and 8 pi over 9. So these three solutions come from this general solution, right? 2 pi over 9 plus or minus 6 pi over 9 times k. And here we'll get 4, 10's too much, but we'll get negative 2, and we'll also get negative 8. So let me write that. Negative 8 pi over 9, negative 2 pi over 9, and 4 pi over 9. I hope you guys can read that. My handwriting's deteriorating pretty bad. But this is the solution to H. So, yeah, negative 8 pi over 9, negative 2 pi over 9, and 4 pi over 9, 8 pi over 9. So these flip, and these flip in terms of signs. All right, almost there, guys. 2 more. This is done. Okay, sine of 4 in parentheses x minus pi over 4 equals 0. All right, between 0 and pi. So I'm going to change this, and I'm just going to go right into setting this part equal to certain angles. Okay, if the sine's equal to 0, it means we're either at 0 or pi, right? You have no height if your sine is 0. There's no opposite side, so 0 or pi. So that means, you know what? Maybe I can fit it here. You guys are going to be mad about this, but yeah, I'm going to try to. I'm going to try and fit this here. So 4x minus pi over 4 is equal to 0 plus or minus pi k. So that gives 0, pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, all that. So now if we're solving for x, well, this is nice. You divide by 4, that becomes 0, or that stays 0. This is pi over 4. Okay, so this means that x minus pi over 4 is equal to 0 plus or minus pi over 4k. And then last step, move this over. So x is equal to pi over 4 plus or minus pi over 4k. So x is equal to 0, pi over 4, pi over 2, right? Because that's pi over 4 plus pi over 4. 3 pi over 4 and pi. Wow. So let's go with like a yellow here. So this is our answer to this. 0 pi over 4 pi over 2, 3 pi over 4 pi. Let's just check. You guys are probably rolling your eyes. Why is he checking? It's good practice too. Pi. So pi minus pi over 4 is 3 pi over 4. Times 4 is 3 pi. The sine of 3 pi is 0. Yeah, okay, it works. And where can I fit j? I guess I'll put j below. So I'll put j all the way down here. So I'll say, see bottom of page 3. Just so if you guys aren't watching this, you know where to look. Let's put that in like red. See bottom page 3 with a smiley face. All right, man. So this same thing I'm going to do. 2x minus pi over 3 equals negative root 3 over 2. Okay, so let's put j down here. So it was sine, wow, of 2x minus pi over 3. 2x minus pi over 3 equals negative root 3 over 2. Yeah. And this is 0 to 2 pi. So I'll write that too, so you don't see me scrolling back and forth. This is for 0 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 2 pi. Okay, so if the sign is negative, it means we're in quadrant 3 or quadrant 4. This is a bigger value, so we're going to be sort of further down in the unit circle, right? So what I mean by that, if we have a unit circle and we know we have to be negative, well, this is a bigger number than, or a larger magnitude than 1/2. So, we're going to be down here and here. So these are angles that we want. This angle is this is 4 pi over 3 here, and this one is 5 pi over 3 there. Okay, so let's go to red. So 2x minus pi over 3 is equal to either 4 pi over 3 plus or minus 2 pi k, or it's 5 pi over 3 plus or minus 2 pi k. All right, so x is equal to, well, 4 pi over 3 divided by 2 is really 2 pi over 3 plus or minus 2 pi over 3k, and this is going to be 5 pi over 6, 5 pi over 6 plus or minus 2 pi over 3k. So that means, let me correct that. That's x minus pi over 3. I'm sure some of you guys already were saying that. X minus pi over 3 is equal to that. So if I add pi over 3, that means x is equal to pi plus or minus 2 pi over 3k, or 5 pi over 6 plus 2 pi over 6 is 7 pi over 6. And boy, I'm sorry guys, my handwriting has just gotten embarrassingly bad. I think I'm just trying to fit everything in too small of a space. Okay, and we're going from 0 to 2 pi. So this first one, well, if I'm starting with pi, I can actually subtract 2 pi over 3 and still get a positive number. So we'll get pi over 3 pi, and then adding 2 pi over 3, that would be 5 pi over 3. So those are those three answers. And then for this second one, 7 pi over 6, I just realized that it has to be plus or minus 2 pi over 3. Again, you guys probably caught that. So if we subtract 4 pi over 6, we get 3 pi over 6, which is pi over 2. Pi over 2. And 7 pi over 6, yes, is good. And then if we add 4 pi over 6 to that, we get 11 pi over 6. So 6 total answers. Now I'm actually going to highlight in blue. Okay. And let's just check one again. Let's check 11 pi over 6. All right, if I check 11 pi over 6, 11 pi over 6 here. 11 pi over 6 minus pi over 3, well, that's 11 pi over 6 minus 2 pi over 6. That's 9 pi over 6, right? Times 2, that's 18 pi over 6, which is really 3 pi. The sine of 3 pi is 0. Uh-oh. And that is not good, so something's wrong. Let me check this again. $11 pi over 6, yeah, let me just check that again. 11 pi over 6 minus 2 pi over 6 is 9 pi over 6. Yeah, 9 pi over 6, right? 11 pi over 6 minus 2, 9 pi over 6 times 2 is 18 pi over 6. Yeah, so something is wrong. Let's go through this, guys. And I know you're probably seeing it already. Well, you know what? Let me test another one. Let me test one from here. 5 pi over 3. It's good to see in a way. 5 pi over 3 minus pi over 3, that's 4 pi over 3. Times 2 is 8 pi over 3. Jeez. And 8 pi over 3 is the same location as 2 pi over 3. And the sine of 2 pi over 3 is root 3 over 2. So this is going to be all root 3. It's not negative. All right. Let's check this out just to start with. First, did I copy the right thing down? 2x minus pi over 3. Yes, equals negative root 3 over 2. All right. That's right. So 4 pi over 3, yes. 5 pi over 3, yes. Okay, so 2x minus pi over 3 is that plus that, that plus that. That looks right. Divide by 2. 4 pi over 3 divided by 2, 2 pi over 3, yeah. 5 pi over 3 divided by 2, 5 pi over 6, yes. And then, yeah. Oh, that's what I forgot to do, guys. Not forgot, but kind of embarrassing. 2 pi k divided by 2 is not 2 pi over 3, right? It's pi. So here, this 2 pi over k, when I divide it by 2, these are both wrong. So I'll correct those. They're going to be just pi, actually, right? Okay, well, hey, sorry that you guys had to see this, but it shows you the value of checking. And I'll leave it blue. And then when we add the pi over 3, that doesn't do anything to this part, so this still is pi. This still is pi. And that should be a plus or minus. So I'm going to make that a plus red. Okay. So let's clean this up a little bit. I don't like how it's ugly. I'd rather it be ugly and right than clean and wrong. Okay. So pi plus pi, that's 0. And then that's going to be 2 pi. So I need to change these two. So I know you guys think that I made a mistake, not on purpose, but as my students know, I never do that. So I hope you caught this as I was going through the video. And if you don't know me too well, you know I'm kidding. But I do hope you guys caught it. If not, that's okay. It just shows you that if you have time and you check, you should be able to catch stuff. All right, 7 pi over 6 minus pi. So that is pi over 6. 7 pi over 6 is still okay. And plus pi again, that's going to be 13 pi over 6, which, is not okay, right? Because we're only going to 2 pi. Yeah, all right. So just two answers here. Meaning I can get rid of that, get rid of that. Okay, let's just check this last one, all right? I want to check 7 pi over 6. 7 pi over 6, okay. 7 pi over 6 minus pi over 3, that's 5 pi over 6. The sine of 2 times 5 pi over 6, that's 10 pi over 6. That is 5 pi over 3. So that's negative root 3 over 2. Hey, times 2 is negative root 3. Okay, it works. So I'm going to say that, yeah, this is correct. And that's for J. So let's check this one off. It's in blue. Check, check. I'll stop this video And then we'll make a video for the identities and for this triangle question. All right, hope you stayed with all that. This is pretty intense, but that's why you guys are in the class you're in, because you like that intensity, at least with math.